with the halachot of the Shaliach Tzibur, Mishnah Berurah brings down something based on what Maran says a little bit later, whether or not a person who is Rahman Yitzlan blind, are they allowed or eligible to be the Chazzan? And Maran rules that a blind person is eligible to be the Chazzan. Of course, when it comes to be the Bal Koreh, even if this person knows the Kriyat Torah by heart, it can never be read by heart. It has to be from inside. But to be the Chazzan, as long as he's familiar, a person with that type of a handicap would be eligible. Mishnah Berurah brings earlier, Adraba, Lev Nishbar v'nidke Elohim lo tivzeh, that a person with a certain amount of challenge in life, like a person with a handicap, is perhaps even more fitting. Why? Because a person who's going to be the Chazzan comes before HaKadosh Baruch Hu without arrogance. Instead, he comes with a certain amount of humility, a certain amount of a spirit which is considered lev nishbar v'nidke, and a lowly spirit, a ruach shfala, a spirit of humility, which Maran himself writes, shiyeh anav. The person who comes to be the Chazzan, certainly if he's a permanent Chazzan, he should be a person who is exceedingly humble, has tremendous humility to stand before HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the humble shaliach of the Tzibur. Similarly, the Mishnah Berurah writes, in the name of Maharam, means, which is that if there is, chas v'shalom, a dispute or disagreement within two members of the Kihila, the obligation of the Chazzan is to remain clear and not involved in that dispute, because he has to be merutza la'am. The Chazzan has to be somebody who is desired, and he is somebody who is wanted by the Kihila, by the Tzibur as much as possible. So therefore, if there is to be chas v'shalom, some sort of dispute between two members of the Kihila, so then the Chazzan has to stay out of it completely. He has to be completely neutral. Mishnah Berurah writes, ben begalui, ben baseter, not just not taking a public position, but even privately. He has to be merutza la'am. He has to be desired by the Kihila as a whole. And there are rules that Hashem we get into, can anybody object to the Chazzan? But in general, the Chazzan has to be merutza la'am. He has to stay clear. And if he himself, as is possible, he might also have a dispute with somebody, so it has to be brought to the Rav, the Dayan, or depending what the issue is, before the heads of the Kihila. And whatever the ruling is, then that's final. But the Chazzan himself, instead, part of the humility has to be that he stays clear of any sort of disputes, doesn't get involved in other people's disputes. Mishnah writes, how much more so if it's not even, with people in the Kihila, he should be somebody who is totally clear of anything having to do with disputes. Similarly, as far as the mindset of the Chazzan, Maran writes down that a person who is blessed with a very pleasant and sweet voice, if he is displaying that voice, if he uses his voice ben imam, sweetly, pleasantly, to give shevach v'odat HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's praiseworthy. If, however, it is only for self-aggrandizement, for purposes of arrogance, to show off his voice, then that is, of course, not acceptable. The Drasha says a very interesting thing that the Midrash brings, kabed et Hashem mehonecha, which literally means a person should honor HaKadosh Baruch Hu from your wealth. But the Midrash brings another interpretation, which is interesting, kabed Hashem megironecha, a person should honor HaKadosh Baruch Hu from your throat, which means that if a person does have a pleasant voice, then he should try to be mechaven. He has an obligation to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu by leading the tefillah, not to be someone who avoids to be the Chazzan. No, if you're blessed with a pleasant voice, you know makam, you know the nusach, you know how to lead the tefillah, then that's a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it should be used for a positive purpose to lead everybody in the tzibur. But again, it should be l'shem shamayim, like he's saying, and then tavo alav bracha, pure intentions, as much as possible to be merutza la'am, to be desired by the people, by avoiding chas shalom, getting involved in machloket, and coming with that sense of humility, which we said is particularly found in people who are ba'alei mum, that they have an advantage in that way, that they have that special anava, that special humility.